for women that have grown up in the church, have always said they're Christians, but they're 23, 24, and they have a body count behind them, I'm advising my son, keep it moving, my child. To be honest with you, that would be my first advice. I would be like, my child, keep it moving.
Keep it moving until when though?
Until you find a woman who values herself enough to save herself for her husband. Or at least...
if he never finds that woman?
That's your portion in the world. I'm really sorry, but
at the same time, Paul is saying that if you're having these urges, it's better for you to marry.
Yeah, but not marry a prostitute. Is that what he says?
No, he's not saying that, but...
but for the sake of sexual morality, just go and grab a prostitute. No, that's not what he's saying.
So then, we have a very interesting question that I want us to discuss today. I really didn't know how to take this question, but I wanted us to discuss this question. I wanted us to look at this question, following on from what we discussed last week, looking at the influence that women have on men, or both positive and negative, although we focused more on the negative aspect of the influence of women and where that can take even just men, even good men, even upright men. With the right whisper in your ear, you end up building shrines for women, even though you're the wisest man that's ever lived. So I wanted us to take it from there. The question today is in two parts, but like I said, I'm not sure what direction we're going to go. That would depend on what our curiosity is going to bring about. So in a nutshell, what I want us to look at today is, does body count matter in the modern world? That's the first section that we're going to look at. And then to finish off, we're going to look at, basically, I want to close off with, upon being saved or baptized, upon repenting, receiving the gospel, the Bible talks about being a new creation, being a new creature in Christ. So when we take this context of body count, what is does it matter? Is it washed away? Are you born anew? And I think this is quite challenging, because we're going to see how we apply certain understandings practically. And this is what I was trying to tell. Remember, there was a conversation that we had some time ago. I was saying that sometimes we are on the theory, but we don't translate that practically. And I think I struggled to express what I meant, but this is a good example of that, where the Bible says that, you're a new creature, you're born again, the old self has died, Well, does that mean that all those 1,000 women are gone as well? Then I'm back on zero, that kind of thing. Don't rush to that. Ponder on that. Let's go back to the beginning. So let me start off by asking you, let me not ask you. Okay, I want you to see the train of thought that I had. I thought to myself, first of all, we need to establish why we're even having a conversation about body count in the first place. If we are living in a society where it's, do as you please, satisfy yourself, and so on and so forth, why or who determines whether a body count is bad or good? What is our anchor? What is our basis? Okay. So I thought to myself, I think it's the best thing to do would be to start with what the teachings around sex in the Bible are.
Good place, yeah.
Right?
Then, good as any.
Sorry?
So as good as any, yeah.
Yeah, so that way we can then explore that a little bit and see, in order for us to determine whether something is good or bad, we need to be able to first to understand it and see it in its context of as to why it was created. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Yeah.
All right, then. Do you have anything you want to add based on that, on where I want us to start from?
No.
What are your thoughts?
Let's dive in. Let's go.
All right, fine. So, here's where I want us to start. Going back to the conversation we've just had about the young man in Dubai, Sheila, I believe it is, from LBC, had a conversation with a caller who is a gypsy, apparently, and he was straight up, yes, that man should rot, right? And the reason why he was straight up like that is because apparently in the gypsy community, a woman's value is up until she's basically a virgin. Yeah. And they discourage sex outside marriage. They discourage premarital sex, basically, to the point where a direct question was asked to him to say that, well, if your daughter, even at 28, had sex without being married, are you disowning her? And he's saying yes. For them, which I found quite interesting, to avoid women, their daughters having sex here, there, everywhere, they encourage young marriages.
Yeah.
So 17, 18, 19, get married. Once you're married, that's it. Then obviously there's no reason, there's no any immorality and transgressions and things like that. Which is interesting because that's where I want to start. I think biblically, that's what the Bible is also indicating. Because what I noticed, there's no verse in the Bible that actually says you can't have sex before marriage. Not directly.
No.
But then there are verses, experiences that we will read that indicate that as a culture, I don't want to say if I can say as a culture, because sometimes people will run to, oh, well, that was a Jewish culture then, you know. But
it was.
Culture,
I mean, you can't deny that. It was.
Exactly. But as a practice, so I want to use the word as a practice. Okay. The reason I'm going to say that, the reason I'm saying that is because of what I'm about to say now. But as a practice, we can see even the Joseph thing we were laughing about, you know, when Joseph realized that this woman is pregnant and he hasn't touched her, conclusion was she must have slept with somebody else. And as a practice, as a culture in those days, he was not going to marry anymore because now she's no longer the flower that she was, right? So we know that there's strong ties between, again, we're talking about women for now. I will address men in a while, but we know that there's a strong tie between a woman's first time to within marriage based on that. And there's a verse that I want to read that I think for me answered, basically gave that clarity that even though, because we can talk about experiences, but there can always be, you know, oh yeah, but that was them. But that was them. Yeah. So this one I believe is 1
Corinthians 7, verse 1.
Just read from verse 1, yes, but it's verse 2 that
1 Corinthians 7. Now concerning the matters about which you wrote, it is good for a man not to have sexual relations with a woman, but because of the temptation to sexual immorality, each man should have his own wife and each woman her own husband. Carry on?
No, that's fine. Right. So let me take it back a little bit because we need to understand what we're talking about and why the verse is relevant.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
So we're talking about in the context of sex, right? What we find is that there's when we talk about the negative aspect of sex, there's adultery, fornication, and sexual immorality, basically, right? So in sexual all these obviously are not advised. Not, I can't even say advisable. They are no's. Okay, so that's why the list of the verses were coming in. Okay, because when you talk about adultery, it's an act where a married person sleeps with somebody other than their spouse, right? Yeah. And the verses that we whizzed through, which we were skimming through anyway, that's what they were addressing. Okay. When you talk about fornication or sexual immorality, it's like all sort of like sexual acts basically outside the marital situation that you're partaking in. That's also a no. So the answer or the solution it gives to sexual immorality is let every man and woman be married, then the bed is kept undefiled. Does that make sense? Are we together? Are we on the same page?
Yeah.
Is that a fair connection to make when it comes to basically sex in general and its connection to marriage?
Yeah, I think so. No, okay. I think that's
so if we're coming back to premarital sex, then like I said, there's not a direct verse that says that, but what you see is that anything outside a marital context qualifies as immoral, right? Or fornication, basically. Okay. So because of that, then you can say that this is why it's not advisable. And this is why it's easy to note in a lot of biblical experiences that most women were virgins as they were getting married, you know, and that's why if a woman was not a virgin, it was an issue, you know, because the norm is according to the biblical text. And I chose New Testament Bibles verses on purpose, right? So that there's not that, okay, but that was then, is what I mean. So if anything, this is what at least we know applies to the to the modern Christianity, if I can say that, to the people of the way post-Christ, okay? And the language is still the same. Now, when you go into the other verse that we skimmed through of 1 Corinthians chapter 5, verse 1, details a bit more of that sexual immorality. That one was an experience about a son sleeping with a father's wife, I think, or something like that. I'm assuming your stepfather. I don't think it was an actual father. So there are verses you could go into, or books you could go into that would detail these sexual immoralities. But we don't want to go down that rabbit hole. I think we are okay where we are. And where we are was to just basically first put an anchor that points to us why, in the first place, the fact that we're talking about body counts is an issue. Because if done correctly, the body count should always be 1 for every single person. 1 in the sense of the person that you're married to is the only person that you've ever known. Does that make sense? Are we together?
Yes, yeah.
I just want you to read the last one, then I'm going to need you to come in and say something here. The Proverbs one addresses men a little bit. Read Proverbs chapter 6 and 32, because the last thing that we want is going back to the conversation that Sheila had. She challenged him about men, and he was saying that a man is a man. That was his answer, because men are men. Men are men.
To mean what?
So we view women as to say that they're flowers. Once they've lost their virginity, it's almost like the value of them drops. So she challenged him on the men aspect. So can a man, do you disown a man then if he's had premarital sex in your community? And his answer was, it's not encouraged, but no, we don't disown them. Well, why is that? Well, because a man is a man. So obviously, clearly there are two mentalities towards this, but he couldn't really explain why it's okay for a man and it's not okay for a woman. But at the same time, he was explaining, he just wasn't articulating. There was no substance in that. Okay. So just to throw this verse out, to say that the Bible does say, he who commits adultery lacks sense, he who does it destroys himself. There's the verse, not the verse, the version I want. What version is that you're reading?
ESV. Best version in the world.
It's really not.
Why? What does your version say?
It says a man.
He. Are you gonna be go? I'm sorry. Are you new age now? You think he could refer to? It says he who commits adultery lacks sense. Yeah. He who does it destroys himself. That's what the verse says.
Yes. So here's where we are at the moment, and here's where I need to come in. Okay. All right. It's not an extensive, because like what we always say on the POV, this is a conversation, it's not a study. So it's not as extensive as it can be. We're not being as detailed as it could have been, but hopefully we're showing that the scriptures are there, the understandings are there to hopefully show why it's viewed like this. Okay, so here's where we are at the point now. We can safely say, with the little literature that we've just looked at, that the ideal situation for believers or for the world that God intended is that at marriage, your body count is 0. Right? If 1, 2, 3, 1 is one too many, the body count should be 0. Right? That qualifies the conversation of, okay, if it's not 0, does it then matter? Does that make sense? Are we together? Okay, fine. Let me hear your thoughts.
Well, I mean, my first question would be, does it matter to who? Or, I guess my question is, does it matter to who? Are we talking to you, to your spouse, or to God?
Okay, all of them. So let's look at a spouse, basically. Yeah, the person that you're going to potentially be with. Yeah, what is the impact of a high body count number to them? We can also talk about yourself, and then we can also talk about God. How does God view that, or does God care about that? So all of them you've mentioned, basically. You can take one at a time and brief me, basically, on your thoughts.
Well, I mean, so I'm just trying to think of where to start, because of the way you've laid the introduction or framed the question, I'm thinking, okay, well,
That anyway.
where do I start? If the question is, does it matter? Well, we've just spent a little bit of time going through the Bible and I guess getting the standard of the Bible, right? Now, you are right that there is no black and white verse that says premarital sex, thou shalt not. But there is more than enough scriptures in the Bible that will tell you that any other sexual activity outside of a committed relationship between that of which I would say husband and wife for now, husband and wife is frowned upon or it's frowned upon. I can't even put anything other than that, right? So if the question is, well, does it matter then? Well, yeah, of course it matters because the Bible has told you that it shouldn't happen. So yes, it does matter because if we as Christians decide, oh, well, it doesn't matter, well, then we're just making up our own rules, aren't we? In which case, why even bother?
Call yourself a Christian.
Exactly. Because if you're going to make up your rule about this, then why are you stopping yourself from, I don't know, going clubbing, for example? Make up your own rule about that. Or it's okay as long as I leave by 11, right? So yes, does it matter? Yes, because the Bible has communicated a standard to us, right? And what I really like about this is that, yes, if you look at the Old Testament, if you look how the Jews did it, you can see a proper clear path of how they operated. In fact, there's even a law given in Deuteronomy to say that if a man marries a woman, and let's say after they've consummated the marriage, he doesn't like her anymore, whatever, and thinks, oh, I'm going to frame her and say she wasn't a virgin when I married her.
Exactly.
The Bible actually lays out, how to do with that situation, what to do to confirm that she was a virgin, but it's all there. So the expectation was there. And even if you go to the New Testament, you see that the expectation is carried on in terms of abstaining from sexual immorality and everything else. So I guess the next question you have to go on to then is, well, if it does matter, then what sort of impact can that have on your spouses or your relationships or anything like that? All right. Now, I found this interesting because it's always something I personally have always viewed it as to say that I don't think the world will tell you that no, it's good to have a couple so that you know what you like, so that you know what works for you, what doesn't, or test compatibility and whatnot. That's what the world will tell you. Cool, fine. However, I also found a study from the world, right? I found a study from the world. This was published last year. It's as far as I know, it's not like a Christian thing or whatever. This is in the Journal of Medicine. It's in the Journal of Medicine, right? And they did a whole bunch of study, and listen to what they found, right? Said, we find the relationship between premarital sex and divorce is highly significant and robust, even when accounting for early life factors. Compared to people with no premarital partners other than eventual spouses, those with 9 or more partners exhibit the highest divorce risk, followed by those with 1 to 8 partners, right? So the study found that the more sexual partners you have, the higher your risk of divorce is. Now, it was a comprehensive study because they considered the possibility that, well, what if that's only the case among the people who are religiously affiliated? Maybe it's because they feel guilty, or maybe it's because, what they did is conflicting with their values, so they get married and blah, 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 whatever. So they looked into that aspect as well. And they concluded that we find no evidence that the link between premarital sex and divorce is due to selectivity based on early life religiosity or beliefs or values, right? So basically to say that this result is consistent, whether you've got a religious background or you haven't. The result of multiple partners equals higher risk of divorce is consistent across all groups. And they found that it doesn't matter whether it's the male or female as well. That also remained consistent. So I found that interesting. I don't know what you think of that.
So simply put, what we are seeing, or rather the study is suggesting, I don't know if I can say the study is suggesting, but if I was
The study, these are the findings of the study.
So if I was to phrase it in my own words, what we are seeing is that, going back to what you were saying about the world will encourage you to have multiple, partners, then you know what you like and so on and so forth. I've also always fundamentally disagreed with that, because I think if you give me cheesecake for dessert for 5 years, all I know is cheesecake. How am I then going to be deciding, oh, you know what, I'm craving, let's say, I don't know, I'm craving a trifle, for example, it's like I have no need to crave for a trifle because what I know is cheesecake. Yeah, terrible example. But what I'm saying is that if you have that one partner, what you like is what that one partner gives you, because that's all you've ever known. Does that make sense?
It does make sense. I don't know if I would. It does make sense, and ultimately, I agree with your conclusion. I don't know if that's the argument I would put forth.
Okay, it's not the argument I'm putting forth, but it is what I'm saying is that, according to that study, is that it makes sense to me, because if you've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 10, or even
of course,
more,
of course it makes sense.
Now
you have comparison points.
Confused.
No, you fine. Confused is one word, but for me, I've always understood it, because now you have comparison points.
Exactly, that's my point.
Like subconsciously, you have comparison points, whether you like it or not.
If you end up settling and marrying somebody, for example, you cannot help but at some point think to yourself about a past experience. You know, oh, 100%. This one used to do this better, or this, that, or that did. Yeah. And then before you know it, there's a bit of dissatisfaction. There's a bit of something getting in the way of your intimacy with this person.
You're right. So let's say your husband is bad at washing dishes. Let's say they eat their food and they just put their dishes on the side, right? If you marry them, you know this as an annoying habit that your husband has. Oh, my husband is so annoying. He always leaves his dishes on the side. That's what you're dealing with. You and your partner have to deal with your husband putting dishes on the side. If you're coming from a previous long-term relationship where your partner was great with the dishes,
that's gonna be
wash the dishes, clean them up, wipe them, the thing. Now it's not just, oh, my partner has this annoying habit of leaving the dishes. Now it's my partner has this annoying thing. John didn't have this. Yes. Right? John was great. John always washed the dishes. John always did. You see, so already automatically you have a comparison point. And unfortunately, you can't help it. This is the thing. People will say, oh, no. But you just can't. When you've had two experiences,
you can't help but reflect back to the previous experience.
And it happens with every aspect of our lives. If you go to a new job, what they're doing at that job, you're going to compare with the job you're coming from.
It's a better paying job, but at least at my old job, it was flexible. It's too rigid here. They want me here at 6 o'clock.
It's part of us humans, for good or for bad. The thing, and the issue is, now imagine you have 8, 9, 10 comparison points. I'm sorry, but no man is going to be able to tick off all those comparison points, because every single man has its own drawbacks and benefits and whatnot. Now, if you take that and try to, so the study makes sense. To be honest, it's something I've always intuitively known, or suspected, maybe I should say. I don't know. They will say, oh no, you can't know unless you do tests, but that's not how wisdom works.
Oh dear. Okay, so here's the thing now. Coming back to making things a bit more practical, leaving this conversation there will alienate a lot of people, right? Because the reality of the fact is that we're living in a world where, I don't know percentages, this is just me guessing off the top of my head, but I could say maybe 5% of women at the moment of marrying age are virgins. Yeah, and maybe that's even being too kind. Fine. Yeah, maybe that's even being too kind. Okay, because like what we're saying, the world now is encouraging.
Well, it depends what you mean by marrying age. I think that's probably one of the biggest issues as well. Because you said women of marrying age.
Let me say legal age.
So are you 16?
Yeah. Okay. So basically, I'm separating a woman who is of age where they can partake in consensual sex from children.
No. I was just saying, when you added the statement, 5% of women of marrying age. Yeah. What age did you have in mind when you were saying of marrying age?
I didn't have a number in mind.
I'm asking.
I didn't have a number in mind, but I had a person who's now thinking, I want to get married. So basically, at that point, that you're thinking, I want to settle down, how many of them are thinking, I want to settle down as virgins?
Okay, so if you had to put a number on it, on average, what's that age in your head? Or of the modern day woman?
The modern world is chaotic, to be fair with you. It's
yes,
mad.
that's what we're here to discuss.
No, the reason I'm saying that is because I don't even think we can safely put a number. I can put a number that I think used to be the case. And I do believe it used to be from at least after uni, so not going too far back. So I would say from maybe about 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26. These years, most women wanted to settle down and find a partner along these years. And it corresponded with the fact that now they're out of university. So it's almost like the last thing that the father would do is pay the tuition fees. Back in the days when we used to pay, right? It's pay the tuition fee of the daughter. So now I'm done with you. So now you're looking for a man who you can be joined with, and then the two of you will create your own thing. So I would put those years, because again, when women that wanted to have children, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, by most of them by 35 or whatsoever, they want to be done with childbearing and things like that. So my statement, that's what I'm saying, that my statement didn't have a number. It had the intentions of somebody wanting to get married.
No.
By that point.
I was using that to highlight another issue that causes issues. But you crack on, yes. So 5% of women of marrying age, carry on with the point.
So that was a point that modern world, if you look at the women that are of marrying age in that definition, the question is how many of them are actually virgins? You see? So you've actually taken me away from my point with what you were saying.
No, because you're saying if we leave it there, we've alienated a lot of people. Yes,
thank you. Yeah. So if we leave it at what we've just discussed, we've alienated a lot of people, because in the modern times, the reality is that a lot of women in and out of the church would have already been on 3, 4, and that's me being generous, partners.
Okay, so what?
So what we want to discuss now is the next step after that, okay? Which is now the count has started. We know it matters. We know it's going to affect your relationship. We know, it's maybe even psychologically affecting you. We know it's going to get in the way of, it might get in the way of your relationships in the future. It seems like almost a non-brainer question, but let's talk about it anyway. So what number is okay? What number is okay for a woman? So let's put numbers there. What number is too much? Okay, so let me flip it. You have a son. Your son wants to get married.
Yeah.
You know the day, you know the situation of the world, right? Or young men in churches, they want to get married. They're looking at their prospects. Okay, unfortunately, we're not going to get any virgins. God is not providing any virgins.
Okay, so that's the premise we're operating
on. Yeah, okay. We're not going to get any virgins. But this man wants to get married. What advice are we giving him? Obviously, it's going to be the less, the better, granted. But then what is less? 10, 15, 20. If I come, if I'm a young man in church and I've come to you, I've met Mary.
Well, if we're talking about the less the better, then okay, assuming on the premise that there are no virgins, one. I don't understand what the issue is.
But hold on. So if you're not one, then we are telling this young man, turn away from that woman.
I mean, context and circumstances matter, but that's where I'm starting from. And then if I'm moving from there, then it would depend on circumstances and conversation, whatnot. But that's where I'm starting from. Because bar this situation, I'm starting from zero. So I'm starting from zero.
We're not getting married in this.
I'm starting from zero.
Generation.
Given the context you've said, okay, fine, that's the situation. I'm saying, okay, one. If you're saying, okay, I'm saying as low as possible. Now, the reason I'm saying, okay, context matters, yeah? Because let's say, for example, you met a girl 23, 24, right? She didn't grow up in the church. She didn't grow up believing. She didn't come from a religious background, right? She came from, as far as we're concerned, Babylon, right? They're brought up different, right? But as soon as they know what the genitals are, they're encouraged to explore, right? So obviously, I appreciate that their history might be different to mine, right? And okay, fine. There may be a bit more leeway there. There may be a conversation that needs to be had there. But again, that's because they weren't a believer. Now they're a believer. If anything, the conversation is okay. Since you've been a believer,
what's happened?
what happened there? Yeah. For women that have grown up in the church, have always said they're Christians, but they're 23, 24, and they have a body count behind them. I'm advising my son, keep it moving, my child. To be honest with you, that would be my first advice. I would be like, my child, keep it moving.
Okay. Keep it moving until when though?
Until you find a woman who values herself enough to save herself for her husband. Or at least
if he never finds that woman,
that's your portion in the world. I'm really sorry,
but at the same time, Paul is saying that if you're having these urges, it's better for you to marry.
Yeah, but not marry a prostitute. Is that what he says?
No, he's not saying that. But
but for the sake of sexual morality, just go grab a prostitute. No, that's not what he's saying.
If that's your lot in life. What if somebody knows that no, this is not my lot in life?
Then
I need a woman.
Then you will find the woman. Because obviously the scenario you gave was a scenario. I get that. But the fact of the matter is there will and are women in this world who value themselves enough to view their sexual purity as something to withhold and take care of.
Let's talk about this a little bit then, because in the modern world, we know that there's this push that is coming in that is about women being empowered, by freeing themselves sexually. It's my body, I can do whatever I want. Abortion is part of it.
What do you want to say about that?
No. What do you want to say?
No. I'm waiting to see what your question is, because I'm like, whoa, okay. I'm trying to see if you're gonna bring a new light to this.
No, I'm not gonna bring a new light to anything. But I want us to discuss it a little bit in the sense that that's what the world is encouraging.
Yes.
Yeah. So obviously that's a direct push against what we're saying, right? How are we balancing that? Because again, going back to the video with Sheila, she was actually she actually mentioned to him that it's like I've just spoken to someone who was back in the medievals. A woman withholding herself for marriage, it seems like such an old thing. Yeah, such as like, it's 2024, dude.
What's the question? I don't understand what the question is.
I'm getting to the question, okay? So how do we promote that without coming across as if we are demeaning women, or we are discouraging women's freedom, or we're not coming across as misogynistic people? How do we push that narrative of saying that? How can you safely articulate the fact that a woman's value is in not the whole value, but in this context, a woman's value is in zero numbers by the time she's getting married, without sounding like a tush?
I don't know about woman's value, and I've never really agreed with the phrase. And I understand where it comes from, and I don't disagree with where it comes from, but the way it's used in this day and age, I don't know if I would jump on that bandwagon. Because first and foremost, if we're coming from a Christian perspective, we have to understand that we're talking about both males and females.
Yes.
So this is not something that we're just saying women, men are just men. No, I 100% disagree with that narrative, because that's not the narrative that we get in the Bible, right? So first and foremost, we're communicating to male and female. So already that eliminates the demeaning women rubbish, because men and women are expected to meet the standard. That already eliminates the misogyny argument, because again, both males are needed to meet the standard. And also the freedom aspect of it is foolish, because if we're talking about sexual freedom, yes, we need to discourage that from both males and females. So yeah, to those point, sexual freedom, there is no such thing. Under the Bible, under God, in Christianity, there is no such thing as sexual freedom in the way the world promotes it. Right? If you want sexual freedom, find yourself a good wife, you're free. Right? Find your sexual freedom in that. However way you want to describe whatever that looks like to you. So, and this is the thing. We as Christians, we need to understand that the world has their own ideology, has their own God, has their own Bible, for lack of a better word. Yeah, we have our own word, our own God, our own Bible,
and we as Christians operate in the world's arena.
Exactly. Yeah.
So that's why it's still always relevant to have a look at how they're doing the things versus how 100%, because we need to know how to navigate the waters.
Especially if we need to look at what not to do.
Yes.
So 100%. The good thing about Christianity is that it operates within cultures and within countries like the UK and stuff like that. So yeah, 100%. We see what the world is doing. We know what they're doing doesn't bring any happiness. It doesn't bring any fulfillment. There is no joy there. We know that, like we were saying earlier, because all the rates of anxiety, depression, relationship breakdown, single family households, all those numbers are through the roof. So we already know what they're doing doesn't work. So then let's not copy what they're doing. How about we stick to the standards of the Bible instead? And we start by encouraging both males and females to have. The reason I said I don't know about value, for me it's about self-worth. It's about self-image. It's about self-value, self-respect, both from male and female. So it's not me attributing the value to the woman to say, you are worth less because you're no longer a virgin. For me, I expect the woman to feel like she's worth less because she's no longer a virgin outside of wedlock.
Head and tails. Okay, let me see. What are the complications of these situations I'm about to mention? Two situations I'm about to mention out of curiosity. I'm laughing already because I can somewhat guess your response. But was it Hosea, the prophet who was asked to go marry a prostitute?
The prostitute.
We know that Rahab, was it Rahab? Was also a prostitute.
Yeah,
I think it was Rahab. And last but not least, who is this?
Tamar. Well, I guess
Tamar.
Goma.
Like wasn't it Goma? Was it Tamar? It wasn't Tamar, it was Goma. But that one, yes.
No, Tamar is one that dressed like a prostitute.
Is it Tamar? Okay, fine. Yeah. That, I'm not sure on the name, but yes, that one. The one when the father of the children that had
Jacob.
died.
Yeah.
No, it's not Jacob. This is going back.
It wasn't Jacob, was it?
No. It was before that.
But it was Tamar, yeah.
It was before that, and she dressed as a prostitute, and then Lord, yeah. What are the implications of this kind of stories in this kind of conversation, in your opinion?
What do you mean?
Literally that. What, if any?
There are no implications.
Again, you say to that young man to say that, I'll say keep it going, and I come to you, but Hosea married a prostitute by God's commandment.
Yeah.
What if this is my lot in life?
I mean,
clearly God forgave this prostitute that Hosea married. Clearly God forgave Rahab and even used her as the lineage. One can claim that great or whatever grandmother of Jesus was a prostitute, which would be biblically correct. So surely it's not that big of a deal when people have got body counts in today's. I think we're just being too old-fashioned, too strict, too to the law, too religious. By these examples, God is a bit more relaxed to it. And if we talk about men, by looking at the previous examples when they could have multiple wives and things like that, clearly we're trying to create a cult here.
Oh, okay, yeah, fine. No, I'm kidding. No. I don't think that argument holds any water at all, because first and foremost, all those examples you've described, at no point is their lifestyle promoted,
advised,
excused, or even like saying, encouraged in any way, right? Now, obviously, the Hosea one is a bit different because we know that was a prophetic thing that he was doing.
Well, Chin. No. God has spoken to me, and he's got a.
That's what I was gonna say. That's what I was gonna say. Listen, my child, if you're coming to me and you're earnestly protesting that I have heard the word of God and this is the woman for me, at the end of the day, all I can do is give counsel, right? If it's a Samson situation.
So you're going to be saying to that person, I don't think God said that to you, but go ahead.
No. Well, I mean, parents know their children. So depending on what I know my child is.
What did you eat before you heard that?
I was like, all right, cool. How much?
I didn't know. Listen, my son, that was not the word of God.
So, but this is the thing. It's like the whole Samson situation, yeah? God giving the message, guys, don't mix with the Philistines. That was set, right? But at the same time, God had plans, and as so doing, he brought Samson to a Philistine. Samson said, I want this Philistine woman. The parents were like, no, but God. Samson was like, no, this is the woman for me. And it went ahead, and we see what happens with that. So the point I'm saying is that if someone is adamant, because one more thing. I'm not saying that if someone has like a really, really high body count, and I'm not gonna let them marry my son or anything, or that they don't deserve to get married or anything. That's not what I'm saying at all. You asked me what advice I would give my child, and that stance I was giving. That's a personal advice, right? And I think you brought in another interesting aspect, because remember at the beginning I said, who does it matter to? Yourself, your spouse, or God? And I think you brought in the aspect of the God angle, right? Because you're absolutely right. The woman that got caught from adultery, she became a follower of Jesus. Are there prostitutes, murderers, adulterers, thieves, in the kingdom of God? 100%. Yeah. Why? Because they've come to Jesus, they've heard the message, they've received the gospel, and and they've been born again, always forgiven. Hallelujah. Come to the throne. However, I guess, and I want to see what you think about this. I still believe that just because you've heard the message and you're now part of the kingdom, it doesn't mean you won't suffer the consequences of your sins or the consequences of your actions. So that could look like a very difficult marriage. That could look like maybe even issues bearing children, or maybe a divorce is in your future because of the things you did. It could look like a lot of things. I still think you may still suffer the consequences of your actions, in the same way that if you're going around sleeping around and you caught an STD or something, and the next day you are saved, it's not just going to magically disappear. You're going to suffer the physical consequences of your sins. In the same way, when Romans says he gave them up to their passions, and as a result, they suffered the consequences in their flesh. If one of them decides, you know what, I'm no longer part of this group, you know what, yes, I was wrong, my eyes have been opened, I'm gone. If they caught AIDS, they have AIDS. They still need to take their tablets, they still need to do the injections, still need to go to NHS every 2 weeks, because you still have that thing. Okay. As a result of your consequences.
I'm gonna come to that as the closing discussion point of the discussion, right? But before we come to that, because I do have quite a bit to say on that, I want to touch on two more things just to get your...
No, but I wanted to see what you thought about that.
I'm going to address that 100%. Go on. But like I said, as a closing one, because, remind me if I forget. Okay, but I want to touch on two more things before we go back to head to head on that. And I'm saying head to head on that because I don't think you like what I'm going to say. Two things I just want to touch on in closing on it, because I feel like they are relevant to address as well in this similar conversation. I believe you heard about the fact that marrying a cousin has become a thing in the Muslim community now.
It's always being a
it's
thing.
always
Now it's a big thing.
No, the number has grown so much in England that now it's an actual thing.
Yeah.
And obviously they are trying to address this, and they're looking at possibly banning it so that it's not being done. Others are saying that no, banning is not the way forward, but maybe educating them, making them aware of the dangers and consequences when it comes to childbearing. What I just wanted to get your comment on slightly was the fact that one of them was saying that when they spoke to these people, basically their community is pushing back to say that no, it's not because we are cousins. It's God's will. Basically, when children come out like that, it is God's will. You know. Now, I did have a quick look biblically, even in the Old Testament. I don't believe cousin marriages were forbidden. You know, we have a list of what was forbidden from brother, mother, sister, stepsister, half sister. Although obviously Abraham's is the question mark then in that regards. But again, bygones be bygones. So what do you think about that then? Do you, because my thoughts are, I don't even know what my thoughts are. I usually use your thoughts to formulate my thoughts. But are you of the same mentality as me, which is very weird for me to be thinking like this because it's not me. But the fact that we are aware that the potential dangers are there, it is our responsibility to put a check on that? Or are they right in saying that, well, it's God's will whether they're going to come out deformed or not? Because the unfortunate thing is that it's ending up costing the NHS money. You know, so I do understand why this has become a conversation. It's costing them money. What are your quick sense on that?
It's funny you should say it actually, because it did come across my radar as well, but I think from a different angle. But I'm with you. I'm with you. I think if we have physical evidence that this practice causes harm to the children that are born, I think for me it's a non-brainer. I think it's a non-brainer.
Get married if you want to, just don't have children.
Yeah, but people won't like that. I mean, if they approve of that, maybe I should submit my idea of tests to have children. it's a beginning step, isn't it? But yeah, no, because for me it's a at the end of the day, we humans on this earth, you know, we are put on here to be our brother's keeper, to look after each other, to make this life as good as it can before it ends. Because let's be honest, it's going to its end, but we can only do our best. And like I said, if we have this cause and correlation thing, then yeah, I mean, people would argue, oh yeah, but if that was the case, why would God have allowed it? I don't know. All I know is that in this day and age, if you do that, this is what's happening. So let's deal with what we can see with the evidence we have before our eyes. Yeah. Let's deal with that. If I mean, fair enough. If there needs to be like a whole big study, worldwide study to find that, no, actually, no, it's not the fact that they're cousins. Maybe it's just abnormally weird among the Asian community. But if you go to like Peru or Africa or whatever, first cousins that get married, there's no issues. Fine. Let's have the then if that's the case, I'll be like, okay, fair enough. Let the cousins get married, because this is not a cause and correlation issue. But if it was, yeah, but I don't think it's ungodlike or unchrist-like or
avoid a certain situation
which causes harm,
that this could lead to that.
Yeah. I don't
even
think
though
so,
my heart is beating for somebody, I avoid that because I know potential childbearing could lead to this, and I don't want
self-control.
Oh dear. All right. So the last one I wanted you to get your thoughts on, and then we'll conclude this discussion. Lily Phillips.
Yeah.
I don't even have to ask a forceful good or a good freedom fighter for women. It's straight up demonic, in my opinion. It's straight up disgusting. It's worse than a prostitute, I would say. And these are words I would not use to describe people.
Would it be worse than anyway, whatever. But just a quick summary for those that don't know. Quick summary.
But obviously, you know that she's an OF model who, in her quest for more fame, more money, more exploration, because she claims that she's always been a sexual human from back in college. You know, for her, it's something she loves. It's not about the money or so or whatnot. Decided to sleep with 100 men in 24 hours. And she's saying that was a test run for 1,000. I did find it quite interesting that apparently there's a woman back in, I don't know what year, but her record was
2005, I think.
Yeah, 947 women, men
900 in something, yeah.
A space of 24 hours, I think was the case. I mean, since we are talking about sex today, sexual immorality, and or you know, I thought it worth a mention. What are your thoughts on her and what she's done? Yeah.
No, what do you want to say? Say what you want to say.
I've said what I want to say. Self-control.
I mean, what do you mean? What are my thoughts on that? It's like you said. It's a symptom of the society that we found ourselves in. It's yeah. I mean, obviously, biblically, from a Christian point of view, there's no discussion there, right? But if you look at it from the world, you'd be very hard pressed to make an argument as to why not. It's what I was talking about the excess. The world talks about excess, and now obviously, even non-religious people will look at that and instinctively they'll be like, "Ew." But I would ask them, "Well, why not? Tell me why not."
What are your thoughts on the men that actually lined up to actually do that as well?
This is what I was telling you, that discussion we're having. The men will always be the problem, because if the men did not turn up, it wouldn't have happened. So this is what I'm saying. Yes, obviously it's her thing.
They're actually sitting in a room knowing that I'm after that person and before that person.
But again, it's not a
people paid money. People traveled from abroad.
Yeah, but again, it's not a strange thing for the world. In a world where, like I've said before, the highest form is to gratify desires. Having 5
Live
minutes,
out your
having 5 minutes with an OF fam, with OF model. It's great. That's something to put on your bio, maybe. I don't know what people do with that information. But yes, so the point is, if the men weren't there, it wouldn't have happened. Because in my head, I was actually thinking, I was like, if a random girl, like just your average girl, posted out on our Instagram, all right, guys, I need 100 men at this address on this day. I'm going to get through as many as I can. Men will turn up. Men will turn up. I'm not talking about the average girl, men will turn up. But if the average guy did that on his Insta, all right, guys, I need 100 women at this address on this day. Do you think men and women will turn up? No.
I think so.
No.
I think so.
The average guy. I'm not talking about an NBA star or a football star. I'm talking about the average, because I'm talking about the average woman, the average girl, men will turn up. The average guy, not many. Maybe you might get a few stragglers here or there, but I guarantee
unless
you,
if you put money,
they're not gonna make. Oh no, if you put money, fine, yeah. But if it's just
which then feeds into that conversation where what men are after is always different to what women are after. If you put money to something, women will gravitate towards that. If it's a man of high status, a celebrity, women will flock.
Yes, yeah.
And that's why the average girl will get men flocking, because men are not after a woman's status, popularity, fame, whatever. If you're offering to pat your legs, men are gonna gravitate towards that.
100%.
Low value men, let's add.
What if low?
Not men that don't.
Maybe.
Yeah, men that don't have self-control. Men that don't have strong value. Because let's not say that all men are trash like that.
Yeah, but this is what I'm saying. That ultimately it goes back to the men. But the fact that I was saying the men hold the power. The men are the root of all these immoralities in the world, because ultimately, especially in the sexual realm, ultimately it is for the pleasure of the men. Ultimately,
I mean, if you ask me, if Eve hadn't eaten the fruit, wouldn't have been here. So if you ask me, the women are
no. If Adam hadn't eaten the fruit, wouldn't have been here.
But they maybe wouldn't have women, because God would have come and be like, story Eve. All right, so I want to come up and finish. That was just
before you move on.
Yeah.
An interesting thing of that, which I've taken interest in, I haven't looked into yet. So if there's anyone listening who has interest or information around soul ties, I would love to get a bit more information about that.
Right.
Because the first time she came on my radar is because she was crying on video. While telling her story right now. And a lot of the comments were like, yeah, soul ties, because of the demons that have entered her and whatnot. And I did find it a bit strange. Obviously afterwards she was like, oh, I was overwhelmed and whatever. That's not how I would have, she was saying they misrepresented me. Is what afterwards, that's what she was saying. But when you watch the video, it is something is haunting in that video of her crying. And that really piqued my interest around soul ties and spiritual ties when it comes to sex. And that's really, I've taken it. I will look into it. Okay. But if there's anyone listening who has a bit more information on that, I would love to. I would love to get some guidance in that area.
Let's do this. There's a young man in your community, in your preview, that you've been working with, studies and Bible studies and whatnot. Lily has converted, confessed, gotten baptized. She's now a strong believer. They're falling in love. Are you saying to the man? Yeah. You to the son, to the young man. Yeah, you can marry her.
Is this a young man or is this my son?
Let me guess. Your son is gonna be a hell no.
Those are very two different conversations I'm having there.
Why should there be two different conversations? Paul cried out for the Israelites, as if they were his kinsmen.
Yeah.
So there shouldn't be a difference. There shouldn't be a difference. Why would you not allow your son to do something that you would let someone else's son do?
The same reason why people have no right. If your son says, I want to go bowling with Johnny, for example, you as a parent, Johnny, you're like, no, don't go bowling. You have nothing against bowling. You have nothing against your son hanging out with friends. But because of that specific knowledge that you have, you're saying, no, I don't think it's a good idea for you to go out on this day with Johnny. But no, that's not a commentary on just going out in general.
Yes.
And that's what all I'm saying is that sometimes
if the neighbor's son says to me, I want to go out with Johnny, with the knowledge that I have, I'll be saying the same thing to the neighbor's son. I don't think Johnny is someone you should be hanging out with.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, for you maybe, and maybe that's a fair point. Maybe that's something I need to think about. I don't know, but
because otherwise you've got to ask your questions. Why, why protecting what are you protecting your son from that you're okay with someone else's son doing? That's got to be a problem as a Christian man. It's got to be a problem. I don't think you can wiggle your way out of that one. It's got to be a problem.
I think I can, but in order for me to do so, I may have to backtrack and lay a lot of foundations. Therefore, let's put a pin in that.
Okay.
You may have a point. I'll see if I can find a way of condensing it without unraveling a bunch of stuff. But to answer your question, honestly, the simple answer is the fact that once you believe, if your heart is truly transformed, you're a new creation. Your past is the past. The old has passed away. You're a new. And for me, I'll always look at, okay, your actions since you've claimed to be a believer, right? What do your actions speak? Now, if I'm honest, to answer your question, with my child, if I've spent time with Lily, I've seen her about in church, whatever, and I'm like, okay, you know what? As far as I can see, she is now a fervent woman of God. I would have very little reason to object. However, I would be having the conversation with my child to say, okay, look, you know her past, you know what she's done, and I need to make you aware that there may be repercussions as a result of this. However, how they're going to manifest, I don't know. But I need you to understand that this is a choice you're making. And as a result, there may be repercussions out of this. It could be from depression from her, like her own mental health, because maybe she's trying to wrestle with this thing that she did in her old life. Now that she's a new person, there's that process of, sanctification that could manifest in disorders or whatever. I don't know. But I would have the conversation with my child to say, this is what you're choosing. This is what you're going into. Go with your eyes open. If he says, yes, Dad, I understand this woman forever, I feel like this is the one God has drawn me to, then I'll be like, I'll give him a blessing. Okay, yeah, cool, go for it. But I think, and this is the point you want to speak to, so you come back to it. For me, I think it is slightly naive to believe that once you're converted, you can no longer suffer the consequences of the things that you partook in before you were converted. But you wanted to speak to that.
No, that's why I used that to tie you back in, because I will be the naive person in this situation. Now